I thank the member for Tangney. The question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the member for Indi.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Colleagues, I rise today to speak about the 2018-19 budget, and in doing so will report on the findings of the Indi Budget survey and the budget breakfasts, the impact of the budget on my community, and a call to action to do better in engaging and listening to regional community. But, Deputy Speaker, I'd also like to welcome into the Parliament colleagues and constituents from my electorate. Thank you very much for coming and giving us your time. Deputy Speaker, over the past 3 weeks, 998 people answered my call to tell me what they thought of the budget. What does it mean to you? Online surveys, postcards, listening posts, social media, Facebook and Twitter, emails, letters, supermarket conversations and focus groups. And in Mansfield, Wangaratta, Wodonga and Benalla, 134 young people met with me before they headed to school, university, TAFE and to work to give me their opinions. So thank you to Cecilia, Kirsten, Amanda, Jenny, Sal, Lana, Sheridan in bringing together young people from your communities and your schools. And a special call out to the schools, FCJ College Benalla, Benalla P12, Rudolph Steiner School, Mansfield Secondary School, Galen College, Beechworth High School, Mount Beauty Secondary College, Cathedral College, Wangaratta High School, Wodonga TAFE, Wodonga Catholic College, Wodonga Senior Secondary and Middle Years, and Victory Lutheran College and Tallangatta Secondary School. Thank you. So across my electorate, every local government was represented and responses from over 60 townships. Almost half of the respondents, 49.9%, indicated they were female, 48.7% male and 1.34% chose not to identify. Most encouragingly, 19% of the surveys were completed by those aged under 25. And to these young people, I say thank you. Thank you for turning up, for having a voice, and for making a very clear statement that young people are engaged in politics. They do care, they have a voice, and that they know they're part of the solution. So, Deputy Speaker, to the findings of this mammoth exercise, there were 5 main concerns, and in priority order: taxation, education and training, health and aged care, renewable energy and climate change, and social security services. So, to taxation. Overwhelmingly, people were concerned that the tax measures were unfair and would lead to increased inequality. 23.6% of people listed tax reform, corporate tax or concerns with tax breaks for banks as their most important issue. And another 3.3% listed increasing inequality stemming from tax changes as their biggest concern. So research shows that these concerns reflect the income and company turnover rates in Indi. 71.3% of residents in my electorate earn below $52,000, and only 2% or 6 companies have a turnover of more than $50 million. So, and what did my constituents tell me about taxes? And I quote, "There should be no tax concessions for big business. This money can be better spent on education, hospitals, medicine and infrastructure. Low to middle income earners need a relief, not people earning over 100K. Small businesses need the relief. It's hard enough to employ people as it is, so help is needed here. You cannot guarantee that big business, such as banks, won't just pass it on to shareholders, and they will be the only ones to benefit." Another constituent from Mount Beauty: "Flattening out our progressive tax rate so that minimum wage earners earn the same or pay the same rate of tax as high-income earners up to $200,000 is patently unfair. This proposed change will lock in further inequality in the system for decades to come, and this is at a time when income inequality is more pronounced than at any other time in living history." The second priority: education and training. And a lack of funding in the budget for education and training closely followed taxation as a key concern. Young people in particular spoke of a lack of access for people wanting to pursue further training or tertiary education in regional Australia. And for those who want to travel for university or TAFE, there are financial barriers. Nearly 1/4, 23.7% of respondents listed education and training as their second most important issue. 81% of respondents ranked education and training as very important, and this was more than any other issue. Deputy Speaker, these survey results, as you would know from rural and regional Australia, are no surprise. Regional students remain underrepresented in higher education institutions. Only 12.7% are from inner regional areas and 12.5% are from outer regional areas. And the impact of this is that only 6% of Indi residents have a tertiary degree, almost 3 times lower than the state average of 17.8%. So we're starting way behind the 8 ball. And to quote from the survey, country students are at a distinct disadvantage compared to city students who can stay living at home. Not all courses are available in the country. Living costs, stresses need to work, much higher living costs, stresses, needing to work longer hours and therefore having less time to study. Some flow-on effects from this can be seen in medical specialists in the country areas, in less medical specialists in the country areas. And another quote from Wodonga: "The quality of education I receive is important as it shapes my future and opportunities, and as such, the government should ensure that every student should receive a world-class standard of education to maximise opportunities and help give students a future they are proud of." 1/5, or 20.24% of respondents listed health and aged care as their highest concern, or second most important issue. Concerns centred on a lack of access and funding, specifically for aged and mental health care. A constituent from Wodonga says on mental health, and I quote, "It's such a common thing that occurs all the time, all around the world, to almost everybody, and there needs to be awareness to the unavoidable issues in today's society that everyone faces at some point in his or her life." And sadly, the high rate of suicide in rural and regional Australia supports these words. As the Centre for Rural and Remote Mental Health reported in April 2017, and I quote, "In every state in Australia, the rate of suicide among those who live outside the greater capital cities is higher than for residents that live within them, and the rate has risen much higher in rural areas over the period 2011 to 2015. And caring for older people in our community with dignity and compassion is a significant issue for the 39 aged care facilities in Indi. And we know that, and again I quote, "Due to the cutbacks the government have implemented, many, particular smaller facilities, are operating at a loss or have very little financial buffer." And a constituent from Wodonga who replied to the online survey, "We need to allow for equitable living for people with disabilities. This means affordable medication, access to services and well-funded mental health services. My clients need a paediatric appointment and assessment to access support funding and NDIS, but they can't afford a paediatric appointment and are stuck." And while the pension, an increase in the New Start allowance and access to youth allowance for students moving to the city were core concerns, the overarching concern that the budget will lead to increased inequality and higher reliance on social security services is driven in part by personal circumstances, such as lower level of personal and household income, as well as high rates of underemployment, all contribute to inequality. In Indi, 92% of residents earn below $91,000. And the average household income is $1,126, and that's approximately 22% lower than the national average. And the rate of part-time workers is 33.6%, which is higher than the national average of 32.4%. So this speaks to a level of poverty. But dare I say, in my community, lack of money is certainly an inhibitor to advancement, but we are wealthy in so many other ways. And the point I'm trying to make about these statistics is my community actually understand how important taxation is, how important it is to actually understand that rural and regional Australia, one size does not fit all. And I'm not actually saying that poverty, that low incomes lead to greater lack of community. It just expresses the inequality that my community recognises. And a constituent from Chiltern raised the decision not to increase the New Start allowance as her single most important issue. She says, "It's impossible for those on it to live a satisfactory life. It creates a class of people in perpetual poverty, which makes one very sad to be an Australian, that we treat people this way. And another constituent from Beechworth. I'm expected to live on approximately $700 a fortnight and actively job search. I work as a casual cleaner, but the government lets me have the first $100, then takes 50 cents in the dollars off me. Some people can't even find menial work. I was lucky, so I have no idea how they manage to pay their rent. This is why homelessness is such an issue. So my comment is I understand these issues are not specific to only my community or only rural and regional Australia. But for me, the impact of the government's health, taxation and education policy very often has a disproportionate impact on regional Australia. And if I could reflect on the words of the Treasurer on budget night, he told us that the budget was about a stronger economy, more jobs, guaranteeing essential services, and that the government is living within its means. He also told us Australians wanted to answer these three questions. What have you, being the government, achieved? What are you, being the government, going to do now? And what does it mean for me? But let me say that again. What does it mean for me? And it struck me that these questions are part of the problem. Because the answer to having a commonwealth in Australia and strong, resilient communities doesn't only lie with government. It also lies with the community. Strong and resilient communities don't exist because of government programs only, but because also of community leadership, collaboration and a real commitment and a genuine commitment to make things better. Deputy Speaker, every year that I've been in Parliament, I've returned to my community post-budget for feedback, for advice and for solutions. And this is how I investigate, how I measure and how I report back to Parliament. But this process of engagement, community ownership and responsibility doesn't end with my actions. The next step I do is I publish the Indi Budget report that will report back to my community and to the Prime Minister and to the leaders in this place on what I've heard, and I'll also encourage communities to stand up and fight for their solutions. We call this type of engagement and responsibility the Indi way. But clearly it's not the only way. There are mechanisms and frameworks in place to help the government better understand the impact of decisions on rural and regional Australia, and to work across portfolios to develop solutions that meet the needs of our communities. Deputy Speaker, one such mechanism is the Regional Ministerial Task Force. It was established by the government in 2017, and we were told that a cross-portfolio task force was the best way to implement good regional policy. It was made up of Cabinet Ministers, and it would focus on closing the gap between the bush and the city in terms of health, education and infrastructure. But 14 months after it's established, we've yet to see a single report. And I suspect its omission from Minister McCormack's and McVeigh's 2018 ministerial budget statement is a sign that we never will. How disappointing. There is nothing in this report, let me call it, Regional Australia, a stronger economy, delivers stronger regions. There is nothing in this that tells us that the government has a plan or strategy for regional Australia. There is nothing in this that tells me that the government actually understands the statistics that I have brought to this Parliament today. And another technique that's available to the government, regional impact statements. They first appeared in 1988 as part of the Cabinet process and were designed to mitigate against negative impact to rural Australians. And my concern is this process of regional impact statement linked to Cabinet papers is now falling short of the desired outcome. And consequently, I've called on the Australian National Audit Office to investigate. So, in closing, Deputy Speaker, colleagues and to members of my community, I say to those in my community, there is an absence of government solutions, an absence of recognition that one size does not fill all. But I say to my community, keep going, keep turning up, have your say, use your voice, form a group, create your own solutions and use your members of Parliament to represent your concerns in Parliament. And I say in closing to the government, the unit of measurement should not be, will someone be worse off? The unit of measurement should be, where is the benefit, where is the opportunity, and how can we support our communities to reach their potential? Thank you.